welcome back to this House of Walls. My name is Ashley, and on this channel I love to share all things homeschooling and books and anything else that I feel like sharing. Today, I can't believe it, we are doing kind of an end of year wrap up and all the books that I read and gave 5 stars to. So, as always, pick up your favorite drink. I am having a double espresso right now to get me through the last part of the today. So I'm going to take a sip and then let's get started. All right, so a reading wrap up. I can't believe it. I hit 100 books for this year. That's just unreal. I can't believe that I read 100 books this year. It has been such a fun journey to kind of figure out what I like and don't like. There were definitely some DNFs this year. I didn't keep track of my DNFs this year. Basically, if I didn't like them, I knocked them out of here as fast as I could. So next year, I am going to be better about keeping track of what I DNF. So at the end of the year, I can kind of reflect back on that. But as of today, yes, it is the middle of the month. I still have, 2 weeks left of the month, but it is kind of a slower reading month, and I am totally cool with that. So as of today, I have finished 101 books. I do have quite a few books going right now, though. So I have 2 different read alouds going with my kids, so those will definitely be counted. I count read aloud chapter books with my kids because I find reading aloud is more difficult than any other form of reading. So those definitely get counted. I do have a couple of books for myself. So my current audiobook is The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. I just started this last night. I am borrowing the audiobook from Libby from my library, so it came in and I needed to pick it up. This was not on my radar to read right now, but it's kind of nice. I was kind of wanting a historical fiction kind of book, and so this is perfect for it. This is following a girl who her father is helping to create the first Oxford Dictionary, but they're not being inclusive and using words from all types of people. And so she takes it upon herself to go out into the world and find those words that the men are trying to get rid of. So I'm not very far into this, maybe, 10 to 15%. So I will keep going with this, but definitely have it done by the end of the month. All right, my next, these 2 have been on my TBR for a while because it's a lot. I am tandem reading Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. It is over 1,300 pages. Yeah, so I am in no rush. I have hit all of my goals that I wanted to hit for this year, so I am taking my time with these. I really, truly might get halfway through and set them down and pick up something lighter to physically read. We will see, but my goal is to have these done by January 1st. So I don't know, let's see, 175 pages and 161 pages into both of them. I am enjoying them. I am enjoying going back and forth between the 2 books. I think that it helps break it up a lot. And so we'll see. In January, I will give my full wrap up of these books, but they are books, book 4 and 5 of the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I have been taking way too long to finish this series, but I am enjoying it. Like, once I pick them up and get into it, I do enjoy them. So here we go. All right, now to get into all of my books that I counted as 5 stars. It was so much fun to pick up a book and not know how I was going to like it and end up having a 5-star book. I do have 22 5-star books for the year. So out of 101 books as of right now, I think that's pretty darn good. There is one at the end that I am saving to share that is my favorite book of the year. It just checked all of the boxes for me and was fantastic. All right, so the first book that I have to talk about, I had started it in December of last year and carried it over and finished it within the first couple days of 2023, but that's okay. And that is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Cozy fantasy following Viv, who is retiring from mercenary work and opening a coffee shop in a cute little town that has never had a coffee shop before. Absolutely loved it. I didn't know that I needed cozy fantasy in my life, and this opened a lot of doors for me. My second 5-star book was The Fifth Season by M.K. Jemisin. I thought this world building was fantastic. I thought that the characters were amazing, and it was complex enough but still easy to follow, but you're still going, well, how does this fit in with everything else? It was fantastic. So this is book 1 of a trilogy, the Broken Earth trilogy. This follows a world that is very different from ours. So they have different seasons where basically there is some kind of earthly event like volcanoes or earthquakes or something, and it sends a season of kind of death where civilizations try their hardest to survive and make it through to the end to keep going. And so this follows, I think book 1 follows 3 different perspectives that you are kind of going through all together. It was fantastic. I loved it. I will say that book 2, which is The Obelisk Gate, I also gave 5 stars to. And the final book, The Stone Sky, I think I had let too much time pass between book 2 and book 3. And so it was still great. It tied it all up at the end. But book 1 and 2 were fantastic. My next 5-star book, I don't have the actual physical copy for, but here it is. It is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. Absolutely loved it. You're following Vasya in Russia. This is definitely historical fantasy, and it hit everything that I needed. It's not a high fantasy or epic or anything like that, but it was fantastic. I also gave the second in the series, The Girl in the Tower, 5 stars. I loved it. I didn't give the ending, The Winter of the Witch, I think I gave 4.5 stars. Again, I think that I let too much time pass between the first 2 books and the final book, and so it really was hard to get back into it. And these, I think that you could read all 3 in the series back to back to back. There's not a whole lot of like getting back into the stories in book 2 and book 3. It's really you jump back in right where you left off and keep going. So I highly recommend that if you're going to pick up this series, read all 3 together like it's one big book. My next was I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. This was my first Ruta Sepetys experience, and I definitely want to check out more by this author. In this book, you are following 17-year-old Christian who is in Romania in 1989 at the fall of communism. I absolutely loved it. Sad to say, I had no idea that this all went on. Was definitely not talked about in my school experience, so I can't wait to share this probably pretty soon with my oldest and then eventually with my youngest. The next is The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichuk. This is a Norse mythology retelling of Angrboda and Loki. I love mythology retellings, and I had never done a Norse mythology retelling, and it was such a fun ride. I really enjoyed it and definitely want to check out more by this author, and I think I need to pick up more mythologies. My next 5-star book was Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. It was fantastic. Quirky characters, slight magical realism, kind of found family, people coming together. It was perfect. I loved it. 5 stars. My next 5-star book was Galatea by Madeline Miller. Again, I love retellings, and I have done 2 others by Madeline Miller, and I am ready for some more. This is a tiny, tiny book. Really, it's like 50 pages, and then just the size of it is really small, but I loved it. This, you are following Galatea, who is sculpted by a man who then, when she comes to life, he marries her. It's very dramatic, very kind of sad, but absolutely fantastic. My next book, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on. Everybody's been hearing about it, and the next book, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. It was fantastic. It was exactly what I was expecting and wanting from it. It just tied up everything that I love in fantasy into one book. I will say that Iron Flame, I did not give 5 stars to. The pacing was off, everything like that. But Fourth Wing totally did it. I loved it. My next was Go as a River by Shelley Reed. This book is set in the 1960s in a small town in Colorado, following 17-year-old Victoria Nash. There is a lot that goes into this little book, and that Victoria has to go through to wrap it up into a little synopsis. A lot. It's kind of Victoria having to find her way and deal with horrible family and horrible treatment and everything like that. But this book was really, really fantastic, and I loved it. My next 5-star book is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This was my first T.J. Klune book. Absolutely loved it. This, you're following Linus, who works in the department in charge of magical youth, and he is being sent to an island. There's an orphanage for magical children. The characters in this book are all quirky and funny and loving. I absolutely loved it. I loved the fantasy aspect of it, along with the found family and quirky characters. It was great. I loved it. Then we have Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This, you are following Demon Copperhead, Damon, as he is growing up in rural Virginia mountains and the opioid epidemic. This one, it's definitely a harder read. It's a long read. This book is dense, but following Demon as he's growing up and all the experiences that he has to go through, I loved it. And he's a character that you're just rooting for the whole time, that somehow his luck will change and something will work out for him. So I highly recommend this one. All right, another new to me author that I definitely want to check out some of her other books, but it is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This is following an older, retired female pirate who is called back into action, so has to get the whole gang back together. Again, quirky characters, found family, there is some fantasy thrown into it, all out on sea. Absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for the next one to come out in this series, and I'll definitely be checking out her other books. The next book is the second book in a duology, and that is The Fire Endless, the first book being A River Enchanted. I really, really enjoyed River Enchanted. I thought it was really, really good, but I think that the second book was a 5-star book, while the first one was 4.5 stars. It was fantastic. So there's not a whole lot that I can say about this one, but it does start with the first one being that a man is called back to the island where he grew up in because girls from the island have started to go missing, and so he is called in to try to help that. There is some magical realism. I mean, it's pretty fantasy, but not like an epic fantasy land. So there's different elements about this island that are different, and I thought it was fantastic, and I loved it. The next is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. And really, to sum up this book, because it is, you know, it's a shorter book and I don't want to give a lot away, but the back says, this isn't the kind of fairy tale where the princess marries a prince. It's the one where she kills him. So you are following the third princess, the youngest, and she has to go on a mission. Again, quirky, funny characters all coming together. That seems to be a theme. I think that is really my like go-to. I love that kind of theme book. The next was a reread for me. So just as a little bit of a background, I started really reading in the beginning of 2021, actually in January of 2021. I had been reading really poorly written, like free or almost free Kindle reads for quite a few years, and it just wasn't cutting it for me. I think in 2020, I DNF'd more books than I actually read. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to start reading some good books. And I started with The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. It was fantastic then, and I reread it this year for a book club, and it was just as fantastic. So this, you are following Nora as she dies, and then is able to go to this library and pick different books that lead to different paths that she could have taken in life. And she gets to experience those different paths. The character development and kind of understanding life's different paths was great. All right, my next cozy fantasy sci-fi, and that is A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crowned Shy by Becky Chambers. So again, two little short, sweet books. Amazing. There's no other word to describe them. So these two books are years after a robot rebellion where robots had been working for the humans and one day kind of gained self-awareness and said, we're not going to do this anymore. And so they all went off to the wild on their own, and humans totally respected that and kind of really changed their way of life. This is then following Dex, who is a tea monk, and he goes out into the wilderness after just feeling really not fulfilled with life and comes across a robot who is wanting to go in and talk with the humans and see if there's anything that they want. I loved it. The philosophical views between Dex and the robot were amazing. All right, we're getting down to the end. Millie has come to join me. I'm going to grab a sip of coffee. And then we have the last 5 to talk about. My next was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This was a book club, and I was the only one in the book club that really enjoyed this book. It is very lyrical, and it is dealing mostly with William Shakespeare's family. It's all very fictionalized. We don't really know what went on with William Shakespeare and his family for like big chunks of time. This is following him as he is meeting his wife and issues with his family, and they have children, but then the plague is coming, everything like that. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Then, for the month of October, I did a buddy read over on Instagram with a group of people, and we all read all 4 books for the Practical Magic series. It was a lot of fun to do. I am so glad that I did it. But 2 of the books really stuck out and were 5-star reads. And that is Magic Lessons. So this is like the prequel. This is set in the 1600s, following Maria Owens, who it starts in England, and of course all the witch burnings. She ends up coming to the United States, has a child, and the story continues. I thought that this was just lovely. Again, you're just rooting for these characters the whole time. It was great. So then the second before Practical Magic, which was written first, but in the timeline of everything, the second book is The Rules of Magic. So this is set in the 1960s, following descendants of the original witch, Maria Owens. So you are following 3 children as they grow up and realize things about themselves and their power and everything like that. This one, it definitely had me crying at the end. I just felt so much for these 3 children and the difficulties that they went through. I thought it was so touching, and you're just rooting for them the whole time. And then this is the second book from this author on this list. So there's a reason. I am going to read the second book after this one really soon. So probably in my January wrap up, that'll be there. But I read Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. So this, you are following the Waverly sisters who have been estranged for many years, as one of them has to return home from a difficult past, and she is bringing along her daughter. So again, this has like magical realism elements and a quirky apple tree that I didn't know apple trees could be so quirky. It's again, found family, quirky characters. There's a theme here. All right, my absolute 5-star book, best book of the year. If you've watched this far, you can see a theme with 5-star books for me. I love slight fantasy, quirky characters, found family, you name it, I love it. And this one definitely hits all of that. It is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. So this book starts with following Wallace, who comes to at his funeral. He is not the most lovable character, but he is then collected by a reaper and taken to this quirky house that has a tea room in it and meets all these amazing characters in it. So he has a chance to kind of redeem himself and grow and learn about himself before he kind of comes to terms and finds peace and can cross over. Absolutely beautiful. Definitely crying while reading this. This has such amazing growth development with characters. It's one of those books where you want to go into this world, to this tea shop, and meet these people and be friends with them. It's just amazing. All right, it's a lot of books. 22 books, all 5 stars. I am really excited about that though. And I think that it has taught me a lot about my reading habits and what really calls to me. So that I think for the year of 2024, I can really kind of hone in on that. I have a lot of books here on my shelves that I bought. Do I think that they'll be 5-star reads? No. So I think that I am going to spend this next year kind of going through some of them and kind of weeding them out and bringing in more of these hopeful 5-star books to read. As always, if you like these types of videos or anything else that I post, please subscribe and like it down below, and I will be back for more soon.